Hi, everyone. How are you today? I liked getting some comments from you yesterday. That was fun. It's Kelly, the Preparedness Pro, here again. Aren't you happy? I'm showing up every day. How about them apples? All right, so today I even took some notes because there was a lot of thoughts in my mind and I didn't want to miss anything. Because today I'm going to talk about financial preparedness. That's the ninth principle of preparedness. Now, for a lot of you, you probably think that should be the first principle of preparedness because you can't possibly get prepared without financial preparedness and being financially secure. But that's simply not true. Spiritual preparedness doesn't cost you a dime unless you want to count the scriptures that you read to help solidify that, or the bed that you kneel beside, or the gas that you spend to get to wherever you find peace and comfort, I suppose. So that's one component. And of course, mental preparedness, that doesn't cost you anything. There's these things called libraries. Physical preparedness, you can obtain a lot of physical preparedness without money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So financial preparedness actually comes in at number 9. And we're going to talk about that today specifically. What I'd like to do, like I said, I've got some notes that I'm going to pull up. But what I'd like to do is share with you a little bit of my path, my life. I have been self-employed nearly my whole life. I've had very few JOBs, stand for just over broke. Very few times have I not lived by the law of harvest, is what I call it, where you reap what you sow. When I did have a job where I actually had a boss that I reported to, that was usually straight commission. Recently, I decided to give the job market a try. And I was convinced by those who hired me that I would never live to regret it, that it was going to be an awesome opportunity. And for 2 years, I was doing great. I was happy. And then I officially lived to regret it on March 1st. It did not go well. In fact, they still owe me lots and lots of money for sales commissions. It just did not go very well. So I gave it a shot, folks. I am a convert to being self-employed. And I'm not saying everybody needs to be self-employed. Not everybody has the heart and the mind for it. But I do believe that having self-employment, in addition to having a side gig, in addition to your regular job, is really important. Because I believe it all boils down to freedom. Self-reliance is independence, which cannot and does not exist without freedom. And economic freedom lies at the base of all of our liberties. Now, I'm not talking about, this is not about more stuff. This is about freedom and self-reliance. Because a person who manages no personal property has no freedom. In a great many ways, we're judged in the society as well as in a spiritual viewpoint by how we manage our stewardship over personal property. Life is going to depend on access to such things such as food and clothing and shelter. Therefore, unless we can acquire these forms of property, our very existence ceases. Property is just an extension to the exercise of freedom as life itself. If a person is deprived of freedom to control the fruits of his labors and is forced to remain dependent upon others for sustenance, he is essentially their slave because he's subject to their control. He will nearly do anything his provider commands merely to stay alive. And I wanted to share this Alexander Hamilton quote. He expresses it just perfectly, as only Alexander Hamilton can. He says, "A power over a man's subsistence amounts to a power over his will. To be free, then, we must be able to provide ourselves with the things upon which our life depends. If our right to access the things we need is denied, we can never escape from our dependence upon and subservience to those who control the physical necessities of life, which prevents us from being independent." Now, think about that, about those who have grown up in such a life, to no fault of their own. It's just how the life that they've come to know. But they've grown up relying so heavily on the government and thus on their fellow men who, pay their taxes and such to the government. And the government likes being put in that position. They love making you subservient to them. They love being able to pull all the strings. That's my opinion anyway. I believe that independence is the key to self-reliance, to being truly prepared. And I think that preparedness is obviously vital. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing Preparedness Pro full board like I am, writing 2 books, doing a radio show twice a week now, doing these lives 5 times a week, doing a new blog every day, social media every day or 6 times a week. And I spent 2 days last week making videos, which I am learning how to edit. Just be patient with me. I will get them out. They're going to be great once I get them edited. Cross your fingers, they will anyway. But I'm all in, and I'm all in because I think that independence is valuable, and I still believe in the independence that this nation was built upon. And I believe that happens with true preparedness. So the right and the control over our personal property is essential to the exercise of freedom, because property is actually the means to all ends. We may define freedom as the power and opportunity to achieve our goals, but no goal of any significance can be achieved unless we are free to use the property in reaching our goal. And with property, we build our homes, we support our families, we acquire a farm, an office, a factory, machinery, and tools, and we enter the occupations of our choice. We construct churches, and we exercise freedom, of freedom of the press, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. We obtain printing presses, a lecture hall, a radio, or a TV station. I have freedom right now in being able to talk to you and say what's on my mind without having somebody bang on my door and arresting me. At least I hope so. We gain an education by using property to support us while we learn and pay those who teach us. So none of our freedoms can be exercised without the right and control of property. I'm thinking of my sister right now. She has the right and the control of a whole lot of property, and she got it neatly organized in her basement. And she runs $1 million Etsy business out of her basement. And she would have none of that if she wasn't given the right to control that property, which is in her stewardship. So the right to and the control of property is essential to our freedom because it enables us to hire the service of others. Through uniting the efforts of many, we can accomplish the purposes completely beyond our own limited abilities. I hope you guys have been able to hear me. I just realized that I had the microphone off to the side. Oh, that would be terrible if you haven't been able to hear me. I'm so sorry. Oh, sorry. All right. Anyway, let's see, where was I? Menopause brain again. All right. So with property, we build our homes, we support our families, blah, blah, blah. Basically, only when we can employ the skill, knowledge, and experiences of others and coordinate their efforts toward a common goal can we accomplish great things in the production and distribution of goods and services. So what's the reality of the world around us? Why are so many struggling economically? And it's getting worse. I think we've all taken a good swift kick to the gut in gas prices, and then a good swift punch to the jaw in grocery prices. Getting a electric bill for $400 or $500 is nothing out of the ordinary now for the summer. I think too many of us have stopped bearing the responsibility of our support. And let me define that. I'm not saying you're not working hard, you're not going and doing your job. But let's look at the financial aspect of all of this. We're not making enough. And we're not using what we have wisely in some cases, and we're not protecting what we have. So let's talk about that last aspect first, protecting our income. Using what we have wisely. There's savings. I believe wholeheartedly in 10% to the Lord. That's what he says. Give me 10%. Okay, 10% to the Lord. And guess what? 10% to ourselves. Old Testament, 10% to ourselves. Compounding that value, when whatever we have stewardship over, we can compound that value with shopping sales, being wise, shopping. We don't necessarily need a new sofa. We can go on Facebook Marketplace and end up with something amazing that somebody foolish bought on a whim and decided it didn't look quite right with their fuchsia colored curtains, and we can make sound investments and backing our investments, backing our purchases with knowledge. Coupons are still a thing, folks. They are not as they were in the down and dirty days of being able to get $180 worth of groceries for $5. And yes, I've done that before. So is my sister. It's not the same as it used to be. It's not the wild, wild west in couponing, but they still have value. You can still obtain 1960 prices with couponing. It's just not as abundant as it used to be. So why pay more? Why not be a good steward over what you've been given? Knowledge, the mental preparedness, principle number 2, compounds the value of our dollar. Instead of spending a fortune on enough fuel to cook with for 1 year, we can invest in a solar oven, for example, and then have that access. We can prepare our lunch in the morning. We can have oatmeal sit out overnight, and then we have our breakfast. We can prevent our lunch with the morning sun and prevent our dinner with the afternoon sun. We could use a pressure cooker, which will drastically reduce the amount of butane that you would need on a butane stove. Again, it's about knowledge. Knowledge will compound the value of the dollar. For example, I use Shirley J products. I don't know if any of you have heard of Shirley J, but it's shirleyj.com. And they have some amazing cooking products that I utilize because it compounds the value of my dollar. Any cream sauce that you would have, any casserole, any soup, any conjuring of anything that has a cream base. I use what they call it their universal sauce because it's a fourth of the calories. It's no hydrogenated oils, no MSG, and I can get one bag of it and have it equal 45 cans of cream of blah blah soup. And it only takes up a little space, and it's got a 20-year shelf life. Not that I'm waiting 20 years to get into it, because I actually rotate what I buy. I only buy what I'm going to eat. That's just one more way of compounding the dollar. If you're interested, go to shirleyj.com. When you buy whatever you're going to buy, put in Prep Pro. They'll give you 10% off just because you know me. Isn't that nice? Anyway, that knowledge is going to compound the value of the dollar, and we should be pursuing that always. I don't care if you're making $250,000 every year. You should be able to compound the value of that dollar with knowledge. We should never be so arrogant that we no longer care that we're paying top dollar for something. We should never be lackadaisical stewards over our dollar, is my opinion. So increasing our financial income is part of what I would call the self-reliance revolution. I have a living. Yeah, I do have a living. I have a saying that I live by. If you can't join them, beat them. Now, I know that goes a little backwards to what most of you have heard. If you can't beat them, join them. But I'm the other way around. And that's because I've constantly created my work for me. I've not been reliant upon joining others in their work. One time I was trying to get more articles published in other magazines, and I wasn't being accepted. So what did I do? I created my own magazine, and ta-da, now I could have as many articles accepted in that magazine as I wanted, and I marketed that magazine. If you can't join them, beat them. I think it's time we stopped gambling our futures, our legacies to the hand of others. Now, this is talking about self-employment. There used to be a time in which the large majority of Americans lived in accordance to the law of the harvest. This nation was built upon the strength of that mindset. The strength of that mindset. You didn't have a job, you had an apprenticeship so that you could go and live by the law of the harvest. Now today, we've got college graduates suing their alma mater because they can't get a job in underwater basket weaving. It's ridiculous. But here's the real gamble. Here's what's really the gamble. The real gamble is we're gambling that the person who hires us is smart enough to be profitable so that we can get paid, so that we can meet our own obligations. And yet I've had people deliberate on a $200 purchase of food with more effort and thought than they ever do when accepting a job offer from a person. And that's insane. We should be giving them our resume. They should be giving us their resume. After all, we're going to rely on them to make wise decisions on our behalf. We're going to rely on them to be able to feed our family. We're gambling that our contribution to society will continue to become relevant. If it stops being relevant, what are we empowered to do when we're working for another company? Nothing. We have to go find another job. Self-employment contributes greatly to the economic health of a nation, as well as the mental health of a nation. It fosters that much less of that entitled society for you, for your kids. I love my nieces and nephews. When they come over, they're like, what can I do to help? Can I help you do dishes? Can I take out the trash for you? These kids are not entitled in any way, shape, or form. They have such a great work ethic, and we are missing that today. I just met a friend for lunch at Wendy's today. I know we big spenders that we are. I got the $5 biggie if you're curious. Anyway, because of my habit, I walked right by the kiosk. Because apparently they want you to order at the kiosk. How dare you actually go up to a human being and place your order? Because that would mean that they'd have to work and get your order right, and etc. Having a comprehension of a dollar and its value in our lives, we've got to have some more maturity in that regard. And like I said, we cannot afford to be arrogant in that area. When we are self-employed, we tend to have a less selfish vision because we see the whole picture. We see the consequences. We see the domino effect. Well, not everyone does. That's why businesses fail. Not everyone sees the domino effect. I was just talking to my friend, and he was talking about somebody who ended up owing him $20,000 and left town. And that was because he was doing really, really well. And he was working out of his home. And then he decided he needed a warehouse for his roofing business. Okay, that kind of makes sense. But then he decided that he needed to be seen like a real respectable business. And so he needed a storefront. I can't imagine any roofing business truly needing a storefront. So he got a storefront. He started paying for that. But then he decided he needed a second storefront. And so he got a second storefront less than 40 minutes away from his other storefront. I mean, it was like a 22-minute drive. It was ridiculous. And then he decided he needed a sales manager for both locations, which is insane. So sometimes we can get selfish in our vision of being self-employed. But I think overall, when we're living the law of the harvest, we value every bit of work effort that we're putting in. And we tend to make a better contribution to society because of, not because of compulsion or coercion. We want to do this job in order to get this pay. It's not contribution. It's fulfilling the job requirement rather than just, I'm going to make my contribution to my 8 hours a day and that's it. I think at the very least, we need to increase our knowledge base. If you're not going to go out and get self-employed or get a side gig, at least increase your knowledge base, just in case you find yourself thrown back into the world of the 18th century technology. I did an interview today on the radio show. It went live at 11, but until I get accepted by the Spotify's and iTunes and Amazons of the world, which should happen in a few days, you won't be able to see or hear, I should say, the broadcast. But this was a very interesting broadcast. It was a woman who survived the 1988 6.8 Richter scale earthquake in Armenia. And it wasn't just a matter of surviving that earthquake. For the next 13 years, it was hand to mouth, no electricity, no water. 13 years, folks. So, can you imagine being an accountant, having that be your job, and then having an earthquake happen and the pieces not being put back together for 13 years? You don't have a marketable skill. What are you going to do? So, at the least, we need to increase our knowledge base just in case. Just in case. Ideally, we need to independently increase our income. I have a friend that is disabled by all stretch of the imagination. He's just plain disabled, but he studies very deliberately, and he makes small investments based upon his studies, and he increases his investments because of that. He's doing what he can. He looks at it as a part-time job, and he's very responsible with the money that he invests. And he doesn't just invest willy-nilly. Oh, that sounds like a good brand name, or I think this is going to be hot. He does his homework. A successful life, in my opinion, is one that's lived through understanding and pursuing one's own path, not chasing after dreams or fulfilling the expectations of others. We can certainly do that as a contribution to our community, but it's not going to let us go long term. Even my sister, who's very successful at what she's doing, and she's just so good at it. I mean, she's taken what she's doing to new heights, and I don't think anybody can touch her because she just takes care of all the little details. But it's not her passion, what she's doing per se. It was just something that she started during COVID, and it kind of took off and never stopped. But she certainly is looking for when she can do what her passion is pulling her to do, and I applaud her for that. I'm cheering for her to do that as well. I'm cheering for all of you to do the same thing, is to have a successful life that's lived through an understanding and a pursuing of your own path. So often we're concerned with what makes us feel good that we stop short of what makes us be great. And to me, self-employment is the only way to strike back with what's going on around us. I think there's a time to submit to being slapped, and then there's a time to hit back twice so you'll not be slapped again. And I'm not talking about becoming the next Microsoft. I'm not talking about doing enough to meet your needs independently of the whims of others. Bending and being able to respond quickly to the needs of your immediate market, like a blade of grass. Grass is better than a big oak, folks. A tornado can rip the oak right out of its place, but it doesn't do much to that blade of grass. And this is exactly what I'm talking about in terms of being self-reliant and creating our own financial security. And I understand that self-employment comes with trepidation because you're relying on yourself. And we live in such a world with, thanks to social media. Yeah, hallelujah, social media. You're so great. You make people not believe in themselves. You make people doubt themselves. Pinterest, you're the worst. Pinterest makes everybody feel like a failure. They make a cake and they're a failure because it says so on Pinterest, because it didn't look like this. I believe that it's a shortage of people not trusting themselves enough that's contributing to the decline of our society. You're going to make mistakes, no matter which option you choose, but mistakes made on a path to self-reliance will correct themselves, while those made through blind adherence to subjective standards, all that does is simply perpetuate a lie and a fictitious world at that. But self-employment frees us from that dire need of approval from others. We do what we do because of passion. It's the right thing to do, etc. Isn't that a better makeup of a society than what we've got in so many other aspects of our world? Think of all those statistics of failure in big companies. They fail too. You've got the big companies too. Yes, there's hundreds of ways to fail at being self-employed, but you only need one way to succeed. Even the greatest warrior, I'll always remember this, because even the greatest warrior, when standing in the midst of a battlefield, will sweat with fear. And his body will be fearful, and his mind will be fearful, but his spirit is fearless. He's able to detach himself from the fear of the body and the mind, clinging instead to the fearlessness of his spirit. So successful people are not controlled by their emotions. They press on with a greater courage and a renewed energy. They believe in themselves, and that's not changed with the whims of other people or with a comment on Facebook. There are going to be lessons, and I hope that's what I'm preparing you for. Whatever lessons get thrown at us, our only mistake will be in not preparing ourselves for those lessons, necessary lessons to strengthen ourselves. So what can you do? What can you do as a side hustle? It doesn't have to be perfect. It simply needs to be put into play. You can consult. I think I keep picking on my sister here, but I think my sister would be a great consultant. I mean, my gosh, she's got a master's degree in marketing. I mean, she could consult any business. She'd do amazing. I'm in marketing and I'm a great consultant and I don't have a master's. So imagine what she could do. You could do physical labor. Maybe you're great at repairs, babysitting. I mean, my gosh, people need great babysitters. And have you seen what a babysitter can charge nowadays? Market talents or market to a specific need. But whatever you do, differentiate what you do and be capable of expressing it clearly and concisely. And you know what? If you don't know how to do that, if you want an idea, if you want to bounce your idea off of someone, I'm here. Message me on Facebook or on Instagram. I'm here. I'm more than happy to help you and put on my marketing hat and let's help you with your side gig. Let's help you be financially prepared. I'm more than happy to do that because I'm not just here to help you get your food preparedness set or your physical preparedness set or your mental preparedness set. I'm here to help you with the 10 principles of preparedness. So that's all I have for today. If you have any questions or anything of that nature, as I always say, meet me in the middle. Meet me on Facebook or wherever you need to, and I will be there for you. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.